Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another North Carolina Botanical Garden Lunchbox talk here today. We're here to share about our important botanical garden program, Therapeutic Horticulture. Before I introduce our speaker today, just wanted to go through a few items. First of all, I'm Joanna Massey-Lalikas. I'm the Director of Learning and Engagement here at the Garden. And behind the desk there, we have David Michaud, who's supporting our online audience with Q&A and any technical issues that may arise. And we're excited to have folks tuning in with us on Zoom from California, Delaware, Oregon, Texas, New Mexico, Maryland, New York, Kentucky, Nigeria, and Quebec, among other places, if you signed up in the last hour or two. And so we want to welcome everybody on Zoom and everybody here in the room with us today. That breadth kind of gives you a preview to the work that Emilee's been doing to really broaden the reach of our programs. This program is one of the most long-lived programs at the North Carolina Botanical Garden. It initiated in about the late 1970s. What is that, about 45 years long? And it started out as horticultural therapy. We now call it therapeutic horticulture. That was a change over the last few years to broaden the umbrella. Horticultural therapy fits underneath the umbrella of therapeutic horticulture. And we've had some amazing folks leading this program over the years, some real strong leadership, including Sally Haskett and Nancy Easterling and so many others. And Emilee Weaver is really continuing that tradition of strong leadership. And she's built upon the deep foundation that was created for this program before her arrival at the garden last year. And she's already extended our reach, as I just mentioned, and partnership internationally. And she'll share a bit about that in her presentation. It's really an honor and privilege to introduce Emilee Weaver. Emilee Weaver has been a professional horticulturist for 24 years in 5 different states and climates in the US. 14 of those years have been spent as a horticultural therapist and consultant. Stemming from a formalized education in social work, years of in-field horticulture experience, and a horticultural therapy certificate from the Horticultural Therapy Institute of Denver, she has developed and managed numerous horticultural therapy programs involving a variety of populations and settings. Most notably, she developed a therapeutic vocational horticultural therapy program at a high security treatment facility for adolescent girls, a military veteran reintegration program at Denver Botanic Gardens, and managed a horticultural therapy program at a 400-bed state-managed psychiatric hospital in North Carolina. She currently serves as the Therapeutic Horticulture Program Manager here at the North Carolina Botanical Garden, providing direct services to community organizations and managing the on-site and the online educational programs in therapeutic horticulture that are offered here at the garden and some in partnership with NC State. Emilee's spoken at national and international conferences and symposiums in efforts to spread the importance of sound program development practices that support the longevity and efficacy of therapeutic horticulture and horticultural therapy programs. She's a co-author of the textbook, The Profession and Practice of Horticultural Therapy, which was published in 2019. And she's really enthusiastic about supporting a thriving therapeutic horticulture and horticultural therapy community in North Carolina, across the United States and beyond. So it's my pleasure. Please help me to welcome Emilee Weaver to the stage.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for that warm, very kind welcome. And welcome to everybody here in this room and also online. Your time is very valuable to me, and so I appreciate you sharing it with me. I'm very, very honored to be the Therapeutic Horticulture Program Manager for the North Carolina Botanical Garden. In part because, as Joanna said, this is the longest standing 45-year-old program in the country. something in which when I started out in this field, I looked up to as a leader. And so now that I'm getting to be a leader in this particular organization is a humbling honor for me. And it's really beautiful to think that I can take, that I would be able to build upon the legacy that's already been created by all these amazing people who came before me, and then to synthesize what we've accomplished, what we've done, and what still needs to be done to dream about what the future could look like for this program and also for the field of therapeutic horticulture in the United States and abroad. A lot of people ask me why I chose TH as a career path. And the answer is quite simple. There are millions of people in this country and across the globe who have physical, cognitive, and mental health conditions that severely limit or eliminate people's access to the natural world. I've been one of those people when I've had different injuries, and maybe you in the audience have also had this experience or have had a loved one who may have gotten into a car accident and ends up in the hospital for numerous days or weeks and then has to go through a battery of rehabilitative interventions. Or maybe you have a parent who needs to go to an assisted living facility because they can't live independently anymore. And these facilities tend to be chronically understaffed. Or maybe you work 8 to 12 hours a day behind a computer and you're a perfectly able-bodied human being and you still have limited access to nature. And the thing is that research shows us that passive and active interaction with nature is directly correlated to our mental and physical health and well-being. And so when we think about access to nature, this is actually a social justice issue. It's something that everyone, at least in my opinion, has the right to engage and commune with the natural world, regardless of these situations in their lives that they have no control over. And as we move forward, I'll be kind of giving a brief overview of the field of therapeutic horticulture. So we're working from a shared understanding of what it is. And then I'll share with you what the North Carolina Botanical Garden is currently working towards to affect the change that we want to see in the social justice issue. So most of you have probably heard of these traditional interventions: psychotherapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and recreational therapy. So the thing that makes all of these things similar is that they're all working towards a similar goal, right? It's to facilitate the development and skills and behaviors that empower clients to achieve personal goals. So each of these interventions basically has chosen a different vehicle to get people from point A to point B. Point A is a need, a challenge that a person may have, and point B is the successful completion of that goal to a point where they can be well. Psychotherapists use talk therapy and other interventions to as a vehicle to work towards goals. Physical therapists use exercises, stretches, massage to work towards goals. Occupational therapists use adaptive tools and techniques to work towards goals, and recreational therapists use sports, games, crafts, and other activities to work towards goals. And in the same way, therapeutic horticulture uses plants as a vehicle to get patients or clients from point A to point B. And the word I really want you to focus on there is the facilitated use of plants and nature-based activities to work towards goals of personal health and well-being. Any of us can walk outside right now and we can take a walk in the woods, we can go out into our own gardens, and there will be some therapeutic benefit to that. Research shows us this, that even just viewing nature from inside and looking at green leaves on the outside can reduce the number of days that you stay in a hospital after surgery, or reduce the amount of pain medication that you request after a surgery. And it increases even more when you actually go out and physically engage, get the sun on your skin, and engage with nature directly outside. But the difference between therapeutic horticulture and just simple gardening is that you have a trained therapeutic horticulture practitioner who specifically designs plant and nature-based activities to work towards goals. So we'll take a look at some of the goals that we work towards on a regular basis. So these are the primary goals that we're focused on: are psychological, physical, cognitive, social, and vocational goals. What's really interesting about TH is that we can, in one program, we can work on all of these goals all at the same time. It doesn't just have to be one or the other. And that not only is effective in terms of speeding up recovery, but also just on the basis of cost. One practitioner can work towards so many different goals. It's pretty amazing. Some of the goals, psychological, I mean, decreased anxiety, stress, and depression. That could touch any population in this country, couldn't it? Lowers blood pressure and heart rate. Think about all of the heart issues that we have in this country, and the musculoskeletal pain and ability to cope with issues of memory and concentration, increased empathy for others, transferable psychosocial job skills. You know, I mean, with vocational skill aspect, there's a lot of jobs in the green industry that, you know, that could, TH programs can specifically influence and get a wide, diverse range of people in the workforce to go into these plant-related jobs. And we'll go into that a little bit later on. But I just wanted to show you some of the research-proven outcomes of TH. And there's many, many more. And there's a growing body of evidence and research about the efficacy of this intervention. So where is this practiced? Well, the short answer is everywhere. Could be anywhere. Someone said, is there a place that you can think of that it wouldn't be effective? And I said, I was thinking maybe space. But then I thought, no, that would just be hard. It would still be effective. It just would be harder. But I wanted to give you an idea of just how far-reaching this is. In this country, right now, there are therapeutic horticulture programs in every single one of these locations, and numerous examples. Not a lot of people have heard about TH, so it may surprise you to see that it's so prevalent. But we can work in clinical settings like mental health and the medical field. We can work in community settings, community gardens and public gardens like this. One of the most originally, horticultural therapy actually was founded back after World War I and II. That's when it kind of formally began to be used in the United States to work with military veterans returning from war. And so they saw that there was a lot of value with those, with that particular population. And then from that, it's extended out into every other population. So we discussed the idea of TH needing to be a facilitated intervention. So what are the roles of a TH practitioner? What makes us different from any other intervention that we've discussed today? We create therapeutic spaces and gardens. So a physical therapist may need a gym with equipment in order to facilitate healing. So our location is gardens, indoor programming areas, farms, anywhere where plants can exist. But we intentionally create them specifically for the needs of certain populations. We facilitate plant and nature-based activities. We provide adaptive tools and techniques and proactively govern safety. There's a lot of safety concerns that arise in a therapeutic horticulture program that are very distinct compared to other interventions, and we'll go into that further later. We document treatment outcomes. and we collaborate with interdisciplinary teams. So these are all great on paper, but let's see what it actually looks like. So healing garden spaces and indoor locations are specifically designed for certain populations. And a therapeutic horticulture practitioner is trained to understand what kind of environment a person needs to be successful. So, and what's really great about it is that you can really scale the location and the way that you deliver the services to your own budget and to your site. And so it may be something like a plant cart that can be pushed around to hospital bedrooms or an assisted living facility. It could be a plant growing light in a housekeeping closet. I've seen that before, where that was the only space this particular facility had. So they had it in there, and they would wheel it out to the day room when it came time to do programming, and that was what they could do. And the program was absolutely loved by all. So that's what they did. You can do TH programming in greenhouses, small or large. It extends the season, the growing season for the program, and gives a nice place to work outside of the rain on days that aren't as nice as others. Maybe a gardening, a whole garden area landscape that has raised beds and seating, and a little bit more of an elaborate design, which is the dream for most therapeutic horticulture practitioners, because it allows us to work with a wider range of populations and meet much more specific goals. We can work on farms, as I said, or even vegetables that are grown in containers if you're in an urban setting. Like I said, we can adapt to any situation. And then finally, you may recognize the picture on the bottom right is public gardens. It's very common. A lot of the TH programs that have arisen throughout the country originate in public gardens and kind of branch out from there. So if you do some research on this field, you'll see that there are a lot of public gardens that have programs. We also can help facilitate the design of passive therapeutic spaces. So this particular design is outside of a hospital, and you can see the labyrinth. You can see the chairs kind of looking at this water feature where the water's cascading over and making a really great sensory experience of the sound of the water. A little bit of plants kind of shielding people from behind, making them feel safe, more like a sanctuary. You can do mindfulness meditations, walking through the labyrinth, and kind of tuck yourself into a nice nook or cranny. If you were waiting for someone to come out of a difficult surgery, that you can go to this place and think about the effect that this would have sitting here versus sitting in a busy waiting room. Also, this is also great for the staff of the hospital. There's research as well that shows that when there are therapeutic spaces available to staff members, it actually increases their sense of well-being and their enjoyment of their job. And I can speak from experience that these spaces are often highly used by staff members and have contributed to them being able to kind of take control over their own mental health and well-being when they're on the job, which obviously through COVID, that was especially important for us. But overall, with anything that we design, we use universal design as a guiding principle. Those 7 principles that you see listed here are the principles that guide this design method. And universal design, the main goal is to make spaces, systems, and products accessible to all. So in our everyday life, universal design may inform somebody who is designing a building. It may be something as simple as sliding automatic doors in a grocery store so that you can enter hands-free. Or it could be curb cutouts so that people who use a wheelchair can also use a sidewalk. But in the TH world, what that might look like is raised beds where people who use wheelchairs can tuck their legs underneath the bed and comfortably work in a forward motion. But at the same time, the parents and teachers who are with these children can also enjoy the benefits of not having to crouch and stoop. So it's not, universal design isn't just for people with impairments and disabilities. It's a matter of us all, and making it accessible so that all of us have the same access. NTH, you can use trellis systems for people who can't crouch or bend, you know, to bring the vegetable harvesting practices up to the person. And then on the right, just something as simple as a chair that has a back and arms. That right there is something that if I put that into a program with elders or people who have just had a stroke, or people with spinal cord injuries where they can still walk, if I had put a chair with a bench or a chair without arms and just a back, that may be the one thing that keeps that person from engaging in any kind of programming or treatment, because they don't want to be struggling and they're already uncomfortable with the differences that have occurred in their body. And the last thing they want to do is have everybody watch them try to struggle up out of a chair. So just this simple thing can be the difference between access and no access. And terrain parks, also known as mobility gardens. By a show of hands, how many people have heard of this concept before? Awesome. Okay, very few people for those of you who are online. Terrain parks are a really interesting newer development in design where, as you can see on the left-hand side here, it's an outdoor location where you basically put all of the obstacles that someone is going to face in one central location so that a trained practitioner can go out, maybe an occupational therapist, physical therapist, could be a therapeutic horticulture practitioner, and provide a safe location for people to practice skills. If they are learning how to use a wheelchair for the first time, if they need to learn how to use a walker and want to feel safe and stable before they can go home and live independently, if they've just had a leg amputation or you know, a whole wide range of maybe someone who has had a stroke and has weakness in one side and kind of shuffles that foot and has the risk of falling. These are outdoor locations that give them the chance to experience this before they have to go and face that alone in their everyday life. But what's really interesting is that they are immersing these terrain parks into gardens. Not only because as a therapeutic horticulture practitioner, I could totally bring a group of people or an individual into a space like this and do programming where they're helping to maintain the garden and we're doing different things in there. And inevitably, we're going to have to get from point A to point B, right? I say, okay, we're going to work on that vegetable garden over there. Well, you're standing here and there's about 10 obstacles in their way to get to that one bed. You know, if you were in a physical therapy gym and you had to walk from this side of the gym to the other, it's kind of like, what's the reward? You know, like, I mean, I don't know if you have ever been in physical therapy, but, you know, it's super beneficial, huge proponent of it. But, you know, when the physical therapist tells you to go home and do a certain number of exercises with the bands and everything, how many of us really always completely abide by that treatment standard? If they were to give me something garden related that was very similar, that worked the same muscles, that did something like that, I would be much more willing to engage in that because I'm running out the door with bells on my ankles to get to the garden, but I'm dragging my feet to go to the gym. And so that's where these mobility gardens can be really effective. They can also be places where people can engage with their families and just sit and get out of the clinical setting of a rehabilitation hospital and enjoy the outdoors. So another role of the therapeutic horticulture practitioner is to facilitate plant and nature-based activities. So one example would be that we could work in vegetable gardens. It could be in-ground gardens, it could be raised beds, it could be container gardens that grow vegetables. But some of the goals that we could work towards are working on fine motor skills. When you're planting seeds, it can be, it can take quite a bit to pick up seeds and put them into individual cells. And for somebody, for instance, who might have had a stroke, who needs to strengthen that side of their body, starting out with something large like a pumpkin seed and having them do that, and then going down to something much smaller that you can start to see a skill level increase as you do something like that. The gross motor skills of vegetable gardening, I'm sure you can envision that, moving around, crouching, standing, squatting, reaching, lifting, lots of good exercise, just healthy weight loss in general too. Down here on the bottom left, just adjustment. Just for that gentleman to get off of the ground with a prosthetic limb is a major skill that he has to learn after he lost this leg. And so not only is there the physical piece of learning how to work with a new limb, but there's also the psychological piece of it, of grieving what used to be, what the new person's new normal is. And so therapeutic horticulture, in that sense, can target two goals at once, because with this gentleman going out into this tomato field and just getting to show his ability to himself, regardless of whether we're watching, that can be a really transformative experience. Up in the top left, you may, for those of you who know our program, that's Sally Haskett in the middle with the white shirt. There's so many social goals you can work towards, especially with teenagers and kids and people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's beautiful to watch the way that a garden brings people together and some of the conversations that can come out as a result. And you may think that you're just having fun and chatting together at some times. And then the next thing you know, you're learning that somebody doesn't feel like they have enough food for their week to get by. And so in this sense, even though they hadn't told that to anybody in their life yet, I got the opportunity as a practitioner to hear that and say, well, how about you take a little bit more of this produce home? Or, there are some resources in this community that can help you with food security. So there's a lot of different ways that resource sharing that you can accomplish secondarily to the treatment you're providing. And then lastly, a huge one, especially for this country, nutrition and cooking skills. People who have to go back out into the community after being maybe incarcerated even, who haven't been cooking for 15 years. We can teach skills before they go out into the community. People who, there's just so many different applications for this, to be able to teach the correlation between mental health and nutrition. So it's not just about physically going out and gardening, it's also about the lessons that are learned completely secondarily about nutrition, about growing your own food and achieving food safety. Garden maintenance. A lot of what we do is maintaining garden spaces, and that doesn't just transfer to being able to go home and take care of a garden of your own, which is a great hobby and a great source of exercise. But there's that whole piece of the therapeutic value of being around beautiful things and being curious and having this moment of awe in the day where you can just have a little bit of a break and take a deep breath and enjoy. If you learn gardening skills, you could get a job in landscaping and other plant-related industries. And so, teenagers who may not want to go into college, you can do a TH program that's vocational in nature, just to teach them how to get jobs in this. Or, someone with intellectual developmental disabilities where they may not be able to enter into any fields, into just any fields. The green industry is perfect for that population. And in some cases, some of the people I've worked with I would choose that person over any other person because they're the most reliable. They're the ones who notice everything. They come in every day and they work hard and they master the skills. And it's a beautiful, empowering experience to watch. You can practice psychosocial skills, communication, and working as a team, and learning how to engage appropriately in a community setting. And then finally, when you're beautifying these spaces in different facilities or schools or wherever the place may be, you're not just benefiting the people in the program, you're benefiting the community around them as a whole. So like I said, with the hospital example, you know, people who are the staff members or the family members who are coming into these settings, they're getting to benefit from the beauty. They're getting to feel more pride in their site. So when it comes down to it, if you or someone that you love ended up in this hospital for a few months or potentially even the rest of your life, which is the case for this hospital, and you were in an office or in a bedroom of this hospital, and you looked out and you saw the picture to the left every day, how would that impact you compared to the picture on the right? You know, it's night and day. You know, this is the last thing. This is the last interaction that this environment right here is the only place that 400 people get to see outdoors for months or the rest of their life. That is a social justice issue to me. Because there is such a lack of stimulation and such a lack of curiosity and wonder and love and life in this area. And I'll tell you what, that garden over to the right, when it was put in, that became the pride and joy of the hospital. And they saw it as a living representation of the clinical values that governed that hospital. And it was a sight to behold. The patients took care of those gardens exclusively. That's their role. Outdoor plant nurseries are also a great example of what you can do in terms of activities. It could be a small nursery where it's just two tables of plants. It doesn't have to be huge. This one isn't super huge, but there's so much to do in them. Again, we've got the vocational piece. You could work in any garden center, greenhouse, or production program after working in this particular nursery. There's physical goals that you can achieve, like balance and core strength. You don't really think about it when you really break down the physical things that you need to do to work with plants. You're bending, you're stooping, you're reaching, you're picking up flats. It really strengthens your core. It helps with your balance. It helps you be more steady on your feet. And, you know, in this particular setting where we were working with psychiatric patients, a lot of them were on very heavy medications, very unsteady on their feet. And we found that the more that they had this engagement of moving and having to increase their balance and their core strength, they were able to kind of manage the physical effects of the medication a lot better, and there's less injuries. And organization skills. You know, this is a very organized nursery. The patients took a great care to make sure that everything was in its place. And working with plants helps build empathy and a sense of nurturing for living things. When I managed a program with in the high security treatment facility for teenage girls, there was a day where one of the girls got very agitated, really upset about something. And we thought that we were going to have to go and do a physical intervention. And of course, we did not want to have to do that. But someone said, wait, if you can't calm down, you're not going to get to go to the horticulture program today. And she stopped and she said, oh no, my plants need me. And it was really interesting to hear her say that my plants need me. And she de-escalated, she came down, and she got to go and work with her plants. And later on in the group, when we had a group discussion about, what we did that day, she reflected back and said, she said, when I realized when I said that I had never felt needed or wanted by anyone in my life. And I know that the plants really needed me. And her treatment team came to me later, and they said that the empathy level that had increased in her as a result of the program was absolutely incredible. And she actually understood the consequences and impact of her actions on other people for the first time. Working in a greenhouse, again, another great opportunity for lots of different types of goals. Skill mastery and empowerment. This gentleman who has Down syndrome, people who have Down syndrome have this really amazing ability to just do things very consistently and methodically. The things that other people may get a little bit bored doing, but working with this population, the level of consistency that I've seen achieved is just amazing. And we also have adaptive exercise. This gentleman who's using a wheelchair, when you use a wheelchair, there's not a lot of, because you can't be walking around and doing conventional exercise, being able to stretch and reach and lift and do all these things is just a fun way to get the exercise that you need. And again, introspection and insight, mindfulness. We integrate mindfulness activities a lot into TH. And sometimes you just need time to be alone and think, to get away from the computer, get away from the TV, get away from everybody else, and have time to heal truly inside. And I call that, I refer to nature as the silent witness, something that silently witnesses the change and the growth that's happening in people, and how beautiful and therapeutic that is for folks, because there's no judgment, but there's still somebody right there next to you. Greenhouse work gives an opportunity for teamwork and communication. And when I managed the veteran reintegration program in Denver, I found that there's the veteran population in particular is very fearful of some of the stigmas of seeking mental health care. And so TH program was a very unassuming way to be able to engage with veterans in a therapeutic way without having to hit them over the head with, this is therapy, this is the outcomes that we want to achieve. We were able to meet them where they were and to get to know them and build their trust, which is in many cases difficult to do, and provide non-stigmatized care. And there's so many stories I could share about that program and the way that we were able to impact the veteran population that I never even anticipated. But this is one more example of why therapeutic horticulture is so beneficial and can reach so many populations. We do indoor activities. So this may be something like propagating indoor plants, which can be applied to your own home life. But it takes a lot of observation, keen observation and critical thinking skills to think about propagating and to watch their progression and know when they should be potted up and know that, it's a very, very involved process that can be really fun. And propagating also, it's basically when you're taking a mother plant and you're taking cuttings and making lots more free plants. So with one plant, I can make 30 plants and I can populate this whole room without having to spend any extra money. I could go and do that in a hospital. I could do that in a group living home for teenagers, and every person could have plants in their room at really no additional cost to me except for a little bit of soil and some pots. So also orientation to time and place. When we work with elders, a lot of the time we'll craft the activities around the season or the holiday to just orient people to what time in the year it is. Something that simple can be the difference between them remembering to write a card to their loved one to say Merry Christmas, or remembering that that someone's birthday. So that's another way that we'll engage with folks. And this program here, the plant rehab program, was one that we did in the psychiatric hospital that I worked at, where we had 1,800 employees. And so I said, we were finding that the patients were having a hard time understanding what a treatment team was for and what their role on the treatment team was as advocates for themselves. And so I created this program where staff members could bring in a plant that had some kind of issue that they didn't know how to fix. And they would bring it in, and then it would be assigned to a patient. And that patient would have to assess the plant, just like they get assessed when they come into the hospital, and create a treatment plan for that plant. And the level of ownership that they would take over these plants was incredible. They'd almost cry when they had to finally let them go back to their original owners. But through the process, they realized that sometimes, when you're treating something, you have to make hard decisions. You have to do things that the plant's not going to like. I have to cut this thing back really hard, and it's not going to look good for a while, but you know what? It's for your own good. And so when they would come back and they would say something about their own treatment team, I'd say, hey, you remember when we did that hard cutback? See how that is very similar to this? And it brought an abstract clinical concept into something that was digestible for the patients. We also do plant-based crafts. These are gomphrena petals up here that we grew the gomphrena, we dried them and made them into cards. You can also do value-added products that you take what you've grown and you process them into something that would be far more costly to buy than the plant itself. So this can be a great way to financially support a TH program. And this is something I've done quite a bit. These are 2 sales that I did at the hospital with the patients. This one sale down on the bottom right, that made $8,000 between the hours of 8 and 1:30 in the afternoon. People wanted to support the program, and we also had beautiful, high quality plants to sell because these patients took such great care of the plants and took pride in it. They got to stand behind the table. They got to tell the customers, this is how you take care of this plant, because they did it every day. They knew. They got to take money, make change, learn customer service skills, so many different things, learn how to manage their symptoms in a community setting. A lot of the folks had schizophrenia. So, if you're hearing voices in a community setting, it can be alarming to others. Well, how can we manage that while we're actually, in this real life application? TH practitioners provide adaptive tools. So we're trained to know what can help someone be as successful as possible in the garden. You've probably seen a lot of these tools, but it's yet again removing barriers to participation. And even I use adaptive tools. It's not just for people with disabilities. I have a lot of weakness in my own wrists, and I've worked in this field for so long. And so I use a certain type of pruner that reduces the amount of stress on my wrists. There's hopefully we'll be putting out another training specifically on adaptive tools and techniques for the community. So keep your eyes peeled on the website. Because this is something I think could be used by a large number of people. Adaptive techniques, if someone cannot crouch or stoop, bend, planting seeds from a standing position through a makeshift funnel and PVC pipe tube, we get creative. We craft a lot of things ourselves to help people be successful. And Something like dusting small dark seeds with flour so that people with low vision can actually locate the seed and know where they're placing it in the soil. And harvesting guides, using some free paint chips from a home improvement store. You can show people exactly what color a vegetable should be when it's ripe. You know, some people they've never picked vegetables. They don't know how long it should be, what color it should be, what it should be like. And so when you build context and education and empower somebody with the tool to be able to identify these things for themselves, they can go out and independently harvest without me having to stand there and do it for them. We proactively govern safety. So we know what kind of plants are toxic or might cause a skin reaction. We have protocols for how to work in heat and cold conditions. We have screening processes that help us understand who may be allergic to environmental allergens or bees, and have a crisis plan in place to help solve the situation when it occurs. We go through programming sites before and after each session and make sure that there are no safety hazards present so that we can ensure safety. We teach proper body mechanics and watch closely to make sure people aren't lifting too much or lifting inappropriately, and can teach them skills to protect themselves. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly in some cases, we also have to govern the culture of safety on an interpersonal level and on a group level, where we're watching, we're making sure that there's no bullying occurring. We're ensuring that people feel like they can speak up and be heard, that they can voice, I'm tired, I just need to slow down, this is moving too fast for me, and creating that culture of inclusivity. And we document progress. Some programs will document progress and some will not. Just depends on the setting. A great example is, you know, if somebody wants to, if their personal vocational goal is to develop industry standard seed planting speeds so that they can get a job in a greenhouse or something, then we can put them in a situation where they'll need to learn the technique of planting seeds and get them up to the level that they will be successful in a job. So each day we'll document how many seed trays a person was able to get through, and then by the end of the program, we say, okay, you know, with this particular skill, you're ready to go. You know, that's really empowering. It helps them feel like, you know what, maybe I could do this. If you do this with several skills, it's even more confidence. And you don't just document progress with something that's just as quantifiable as planting seeds. I can document on behavior, social interactions with peers, whatever it may be that we want to be watching and working on with the individuals. That's what we'll document on and work towards. And so these are all goals over here on the right that these particular traditional interventions work towards on a very regular basis. And every single one of the goals that are listed over on the right can also be accomplished by therapeutic horticulture. This is not to say by any far stretch of the imagination that TH should replace the things on the right. Absolutely not. These targeted interventions are also evidence-based, incredibly helpful, useful. But it really begs the question, when you see this, and you see that TH can also do it, why is TH lesser known and practiced than these other interventions? It's a good question, isn't it? After you've heard what I've said, aren't you sold like on what this intervention could do? Well, the short answer is it's because there's so few of us. 225 registered horticultural therapists in this country, out of over 10 million professionals in allied professions, all of which are working with people who have the least access to the natural world in this country and abroad. So recreational therapists do have some training in integrating outdoor activities, so they're out of this whole list, other than horticultural therapists, they do have some training, but not extensive. But still, they're also the smallest number up there as well. So we have all of these people who have access to people who need access to the outdoors, but they don't have the training in it. Furthermore, when you look on the right, we have people who come from the plant side of the equation, right? There's 86,000 master gardeners in this country. And if any of you in this audience are a master gardener, thank you for your contribution to the country and to your own community. We have a lot of students who are master gardeners, and these folks volunteer their time to go and work in community settings or working with people with needs and challenges every day. But there may not necessarily be training in this particular of how to keep people safe. And this could be a way that we could really develop that force to help people engage in a deeper level with the outdoor world. Landscape designers, so a growing need. We need people who know how to work with TH practitioners so that we share the same language and understanding of what needs to be done. Community garden coordinator educators and public garden staff, again, people who are reaching thousands of people in a year. So after looking at all of this, it begs another question. Why are there so few trained registered HTRs and TH practitioners in the world? Well, it's because there's gigantic barriers to education. So when you look at this map, there's 9 programs in this country that train people in HT and TH. We're one of them. And we have a completely online program, which we'll talk about in a minute. And there's one other program that just this year has gone completely online. Otherwise, they all have some online component, but require you to physically be present at these locations. So if you don't live in a state with a star in it, guess what happens? You just don't get education. And when you look down at the bottom and you see how many schools there are for these other treatment interventions, you can go and you can live in any state and you can find schools when you're thinking, what do I want to do with my life? And you'll see recreational therapy as an example. You'll see physical therapy as an example, but you won't see therapeutic horticulture as an example. So people are finding out about this field when they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Basically, a time when you already have gone through your education, you've already started your career, you may be in a situation where your family needs you more than ever, and you can't stop and go back to school for TH. You can't go to an in-person program. You can't pay the expense of adding to more of your college debt. And this obviously creates a huge barrier. Lastly, and maybe most importantly in some cases, once you go through the expense and time expenditures of becoming educated, is there a job available for you when you get out? So a lot of people don't do it because they say, I won't have a job. And you don't have a job because there's so few of us. So no one gets to see how amazing the intervention is. And so they're not willing to risk funding programs without knowing what it's going to do for them. So we take all of these challenges and we say, how is North Carolina Botanical Garden going to affect some change in this dismal situation? Well, we, in partnership with the Extension Gardener program of NC State University, we created a 100% online certificate program in therapeutic horticulture, which was the first of its kind. You have 24/7 hour access. So no matter what time zone or country you're in, there's no barriers in that sense. And it's asynchronous, meaning you can check in on the class when you're waiting for to pick up your kid from school, or when you're on your lunch break, or on the weekends when you're not working full time. And you can check in and watch the pre-recorded lectures, do the exercises, and engage in the rich forum discussions that are occurring online. Our students tend to be allied professionals. So you remember those 10 million people that we discussed before? These are the folks who tend to, that we heavily target and market our program to. So because what we understand is that these people are already employed and getting paid to provide services in locations where people need access to the outdoors and into the natural world. And so if we can cross-train these professionals in TH practice, then they can bring that therapeutic intervention into all of their locations and provide it to the people who need it the most. So we've been able to reach 400 students in 2 years. So think about 225 registered horticultural therapists in the whole country. And in just 2 years, we've been able to train 400. I think that shows the desire and the need for this. Students from 29 different states and 10 different countries. Think about that. One of the things that's come out because of our complete online program is that we were contacted by the Forest Glade Hospital in Ukraine, just north of Kiev. And they said, we need TH. We have these veterans coming back from the war. We have all these people in turmoil, and we believe that it's within our cultural values and our desire to provide TH to our country, but we have no programs to teach. So they've asked us to translate our online program into Ukrainian so that their service providers can be trained and provide it to the veterans and then spread it to other areas such as hospitals, psychiatric centers, schools, whatever it may be. So this is a really exciting new endeavor that we're working on, and feel very proud that we get to make a difference in this difficult situation, obviously, that they find themselves in right now. We also have our hybrid certificate in therapeutic horticulture. So this is it's a hybrid model. It's a little bit of both. It's 9 months long, and for the month you receive the online recorded lectures from the online program. You again can listen and watch at any time of the day. And then you come in and do a 6-hour-long workshop to physically practice all of the skills that you've learned in the online course. So obviously this means that you kind of need to be local within driving distance to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. But we offer this program to 15 to 20 students per year. And have guest instructors and do field trips. It's a real blast. Actually have one of our students right in here right now. So we offer 4 partial scholarships for this program. We're happy to be able to do that, but we would really love to be able to offer scholarships for our online program too. We're unable to do that at this moment, but we've had a lot of desire for that. So something we're working towards. And then finally, we also offer direct service and consultations. We work at a farm setting with people with mental health concerns, retirement centers for elders, and do a summer camp for exceptional children locally. We'd really love to expand our direct service more. COVID kind of put a pause on some of the ones that we had prior, so we're building that back up. And then in terms of consultation services, we'll consult on therapeutic garden design, assess whether a site is viable for TH before you make the financial investment, and then actually develop programs that will fit with your particular setting. So with that said, I've talked your ear off about what we're doing in the field of TH and how we feel like we can be of most help. If you're out there wondering how you can be of help, first and foremost, you can help us spread the word about TH as a treatment intervention in general, that it exists. Put that into people's ears. You could share information about our online hybrid certificate program so that more people in the community and the world will have access to this training that we're providing. and also to let people know about our direct services. You can utilize our services. At any point, you can contact me, and my information is down here. It's also on the website. So feel free to contact me or if you have any ideas for collaboration or partnership. And then finally, you could support us financially if you feel that that's within your values, and if you resonate with what you've heard today. Your support would go towards just the general program, help us provide the scholarships for the online and hybrid programs to enable more people to access our training. And if you're like me, where you watch the news every night and you see what's going on in Ukraine and you wonder, how in the world can I make a difference with this? If you feel like TH could make a difference in Ukraine with these veterans, then if you support us financially, then we'll be able to continue doing the work that we're doing over there right now. So something to consider. You can scan our QR code or go online if you feel like you'd like to make any kind of donation, totally up to you. But thank you so much for your time, and we'll open the floor to questions.
Yeah, thank you, Emilee. Please. So it's 1 o'clock. So I want to invite anybody who needs to head out to please feel comfortable doing that. But I do want to allow there to be some questions answered on the great program that Emilee is working on. So are there questions in the room? And I know David has one online. Yes, sir. I'll come over to you with the microphone if you don't mind.
You said that this there's a Zoom recording of this?
There is, yes.
How can we access that Zoom recording?
Yes, we'll send it out to folks who registered for the program. And if there's anybody who came as a guest to the room, just be in touch with Emilee or me or David, and we will be sure to get that recording out to folks. Anybody else? David, you have your question. I'll bring you the microphone.
So some folks on Zoom have clearly been doing some Googling, and they've discovered the American Horticultural Therapy Association, which accredits these professional certificate programs. They've noticed that ours is not accredited, but is our certificate program enough work to work professionally in this field?
That's a great question. So yes, we are not accredited. Our program is not accredited by the American Horticultural Therapy Association. The program that I attended to become educated was, so I'm aware of what the standards are. And so from my experience knowing both worlds, I would say that this definitely gives you a great working knowledge of not only the practice, but the whole program development and management side, which is really paramount to have those skills if you're going to be in this field. You know, right at this time, at this moment, there is no state in the country that requires you to be a registered horticultural therapist at the highest level of education. Though it's not required, some jobs that come open do say that they prefer that or require that, most likely in highly clinical settings. But in most cases, a certificate program such as ours will suffice. I would say that the content, the therapeutic horticulture and HT content is almost identical in a lot of ways. The difference is that if you go and pursue registration, you also have to do college level horticulture classes and human services classes. So you have to have college level work on either side, and then you have to have the credits for TH and HT specifically that combines the two. So, in terms of our certificate, we don't offer obviously those flanking sides. We offer the center. So that's why we've really focused a lot on the allied health professions who usually come from the clinical side or the plant side, who have one or the other. I do highly recommend that even if you do our program, you eventually go on and become a registered horticultural therapist, so that we can add to that number, so that the association can get larger, and so that we have more visibility and which will ultimately result in more paid jobs with benefits in the country.
Your way. Thank you, Emilee.
Does a VA embrace HT?
Yes. Yes, one of the greatest supporters of TH and HT are veteran programs, and they actually are the ones who put out the most funding for it as well. So if you want to talk veterans or military TH programs, please reach out to me, because that's one of my specialty populations. Yeah.
Thank you for your time and dedication to this profession and everything that you've done for us today. And on the note with the previous question about the registration, I guess, so I come from a background in clinical social work, but I'm not currently licensed. I practice at the master's level right now. And so I'm just wondering, since it's not, it won't meet the requirements for registration, how would one in my shoes, or I guess anybody, how would we market ourselves so that and I understand there's not legal requirements, so I guess would it be ethical requirements to market ourselves to practice therapeutic horticulture on our resumes or in job interviews, or just out in the community if we're helping people?
So what you would, the way that I can explain it to students is, if you have any other kind of experience or credentials, such as psychology, social work, those types of things, if you took our certificate program, you would say that you have a specialization in TH. So it would mean that you have a verified level of training in this field, and that in and of itself, with the the strength and quality of the universities behind us, would make it so that it would be considered a reputable and highly desirable thing on your resume. Obviously, if you were a registered horticultural therapist, that would hold a little bit more weight, but ultimately, yeah, there are no standards further than what I've described right now.
Great. Any questions online before I take? Okay, and then I'll come back to you.
Are there any public opportunities or open days that the general public can observe or experience TH programs facilitated here at NCBG? And if not, could you just speak on what programs or populations are facilitated here?
One of the problems with being able to observe a program like this is that in order to maintain a culture of safety, we don't invite people randomly into our sessions. Sometimes although we do not provide any that are that open, there are some that can be facilitated. I'm trying to think if there's any locally. I'll have to think on that. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Yeah.
We've got one over here.
Oh,
first.
or were you gonna speak to that?
And I think these two will be the last questions.
Okay.
I volunteer at the farm at Penny Lane.
Yeah.
And I did that through you all and then Matt. And on like Saturdays, once a month, they have an open work day. You can't observe without being involved, but I don't think that they do as much in the way of kind of vetting you. I mean, I think it is open more to people who are really interested in learning about it, but it is something that happens locally. And, the best way to learn anything is to get your hands dirty, literally.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. This audience member had mentioned Farm at Penny Lane, which is one of the direct service contracts that we have. That particular group is open to anybody who has a self-identified mental health concern. So if any of you feel that that's you and you're available from 10 to 12 on Mondays, every Monday, you're welcome to come and join. You'd contact me or the manager at Farm at Penny Lane. You can look them up easily. I don't think we have them linked on our website. And you could participate in the program as a participant. And then as this audience member mentioned, there's some weekend opportunities where you can kind of get immersed into the farm and work alongside people as well.
For people who are interested in hydroponics, is there a cross reference that you can use HT with people who are learning about hydroponics?
Yeah. And there's actually a veteran program in Denver that does just that, from what I understand, if they're still doing it, which I believe they are. Hydroponics are a more expensive program to begin, but if you can get the program going and have the funding to do that, it's a lot more expensive than just planting in the ground or in raised beds. But it's definitely, all of the principles that I've discussed today are applicable to work with hydroponics. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Emilee, thank you so much for sharing with us today. And thank you all for being here. I do encourage you, we'll follow up with emails to folks who have registered today with a link to the recording, as well as the what can you do notes from Emilee's presentation. So thank you for supporting the program by being here and being online, and look forward to seeing you again. Take care.